afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, Mahama government could seek extra funding from the International Monetary Fund to cushion the economy. We'll share with you a Reuters report and discuss the implications. Also coming up, Association of Ghana Industries calls for rationalization of Ghana's tax system, describing it as a disincentive to local businesses.
Just kill down or collapse their business means that it has a very serious biting effect.
And what is the situation in Ghana?
The situation in Ghana is that our tax regime today is not in the best of shape. One is very high. I mean, if you import typical raw materials.
And President Mahama's inauguration outfit sparks conversation about the economic potential of Ghana's Adinkra symbols. Ken will be here with Showbiz. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for joining us. Details coming up. And thanks for staying with us, everyone. First up, the Mahama government could seek extra funding from the International Monetary Fund during its current 3-year program with the lender to cushion the economy. This was disclosed by the Finance Minister-designate Dr. Kassiel Atuforsen. Here's more captured in a Reuters report.
President John Mahama, who was sworn into office this week after beating the ruling party candidate in December's election, picked the former minority leader in parliament to serve in the key post of finance minister. Mr. Forsen told reporters ahead of a meeting with an IMF team that is currently visiting the country that the government is committed to working with the IMF, but also wants to ensure that they can raise additional finance working with the IMF and other domestic and international partners. Mr. Forsen, who has also served as Deputy Finance Minister, said the reliance on treasury bills and others has not been very helpful. The IMF did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. Mr. Forsen, a chartered accountant who holds a master's degree in taxation from Oxford and a doctorate in finance, said the new administration would also cut public spending to help lower inflation further. He said, quote, "There is a lot of wastage in the system and we will cut them," adding the move will also help the government restart domestic bond issuance by mid-year. Ghana, a gold and cocoa producer, defaulted on most of its external debt in 2022, leading to a painful restructuring which is at its tail end. Mr. Forsen said the Mahama government would conclude the process by striking a deal with its non-Eurobond commercial creditors. President John Mahama had pledged to renegotiate the terms of Ghana's bailout with the IMF during his campaign, but market participants have taken the view he had limited room for maneuver and was unlikely to abandon the current IMF program in spite of the campaign rhetoric. The new government has inherited an economy emerging from its worst crisis in a generation.
Well, joining me with reaction to this Reuters report, Associate Professor of Finance at the Andrews University in the U.S., Professor Williams Repart. Good afternoon to you. I know it's morning in the U.S. where you are. First, your reaction to President Mahama's choice of Dr. Kassiel Atuforsen to head the Finance Ministry?
Thank you, Darryl, and good afternoon to your viewers. So, I think that Dr. Kassiel Atuforsen has been really following up as the leader in Parliament House on the financial issues. If you remember, the key issue that the party, NDC party, brought him or made a change to make him the lead in the Parliament House was that they mentioned that the election was about the economy. So he has really studied the Ghanaian economy very well, and I'm sure that he understands the problems or challenges ahead. And he has been doing, speaking to the then NPP government and the finance minister to become disciplined and stay within a strategic plan to ensure that Ghana become a financial sustainable country. He is also in the position to do that. So I think that in terms of his education and training and understanding of the the problem in Ghana, he's cut fit for the job. But let's see what will happen as he starts his job.
Well, first comments since we received news of his nomination as finance minister. He's saying that the Mahama government could seek extra funding from the IMF to cushion the economy. Good idea?
Yes, I mean, if you remember, sometime in July 2023, I mentioned that the 3-year program, the IMF program, was not enough to solve Ghana's problem. Looking at the extent of debt distress that we were in, we were above 100% in terms of debt to GDP. To solve such a challenge, you need about 5 to 7 years. So if you ask me, it's in the right direction to seek about 2 years extension to the program, and that will unlock concessionary loans from IMF and the bilateral institutions to help the Ghanaian agenda. And then also, you notice that the NDC in their manifesto, they have a major plan, which they call it the big push, a 10 billion developmental agenda. This must find its way into the IMF program. So a review and then an extension of that program is in line, and then the NDC will be able to find a way to incorporate the big push agenda, which focuses on infrastructural development. And then they can be able to get some additional funding from the World Bank, from IMF themselves, and then other, let's say, European Union, on the concessionary loan, just focusing on developmental agenda. So that is the way to go, and I think that is in the right direction.
I mean, the concerns are that it could have negative implications. Are there any negatives to this?
So the current situation is that our debt to GDP is about 76%. We are a debt distressed country. We cannot go to the international capital markets. The only way out is to make sure that we get concessionary loans. We still have to take some money from outside our normal revenue generation to support the country. The only disadvantage is that we may leave some generational debt. That will be a major challenge. But where we find ourselves now, we need the IMF and the World Bank to support us. And then based on a revised agreement, Ghana government, the current government will have to be disciplined, and that will be able to help us to strengthen our balance of payment. Let's note that the major concern for Ghana now is how we stabilize our currency. And the only way to get funding to stabilize it is through these bilateral organizations like the IMF will give you money, and the purpose is to make sure that your balance of payment, the money stays in your balance of payment account, and you use it to settle your international debt. This in turn will find its way to make our city stronger.
Yeah, how do you reckon the IMF would react to this request?
And so, remember, the IMF, they are not so rigid. They are flexible. They understand that there's a new government, and this new government will come with its own plan. So they will listen to the current government and say, how can we incorporate your vision, your manifesto plan, as talked about the big push, into the current IMF program, and still make sure that Ghana as a country, we become financially sustained. So this is very, very critical for the country.
Well, the finance minister designate, Dr. Kaisala Tuforce, is quoted in that Reuters story as saying that borrowing from the treasury market has not been helpful. While that may be true, it does give indication that the government intends to borrow some more and could be looking at other alternatives. What do you think?
I mean, this option is really needed. At the moment, the borrowing from the treasury markets, we all know, is crowding out the private sector. Treasury bill rates has gone very high to the 30%. The only way is that government may have to look for an alternative. Government cannot go to the international market to borrow. That's why the concessionary loans discussion has come. And this is very, very important, that government must focus on that. The only way to bring, and resettling the economy also includes making sure that interest rate within the country comes down. And this can be achieved when the treasury bill rate drops. The treasury bill rate will drop if government is not borrowing more from that market. So that option is very crucial and it's needed now.
The finance minister designate also talks about restarting domestic bond issuance by the middle of next year, concluding the process of striking a deal with non-Eurobond commercial creditors. What would that take?
I mean, so a lot of education is needed to make sure that Ghanaians will have confidence in our domestic bond market. So within the 6 months, the finance minister who supervises the financial sector of the country must make sure that a lot of education is done to win the hearts of Ghanaians and say that even though you have had haircuts on your previous investment, this is needed now to make sure that the economy sustained. So we are directing people, in educating people, the need to come onto the Ghana bond market, which is a long-term investment strategy. I know the government has started making payment on the domestic bonds, so that kind of confidence should be there, and that making those payments should also be known to the public, and that will bring the confidence back. One critical thing is that we must also be careful with the coupon rate or interest charge on the bond market. So education, and then that aspect of the interest coupon rates discussion within the local markets is very, very important.
I mean, the president campaigned on renegotiating the IMF program. I mean, are we getting an indication what he meant by that? Not exactly maybe pulling out of the IMF program, maybe seeking an extension, more funding?
Oh, if you ask me, so they are not, the NDC government will not pull out, but they will look for an extension and then more funding. The more fund, the way IMF works is that we have to go with the program. So as I mentioned, they will go to IMF and say, we are a new government. We've won the election based on a certain manifesto. And in it is our big push agenda. We want this big push agenda be captured in the IMF program, which requires IMF to support us and give us a lot of developmental funding to make sure that the big push agenda is achieved. I'm sure IMF is not too difficult to sit down and listen to Ghana.
Right.
So that is what I'm thinking that it will happen. And in my best bet, 2 years, additional 2 years, adding to the current 3 years in terms of the duration of this IMF program is what is going to happen. I know that this current government is mindful that they don't want to go to 2028 still in an IMF program. So 2 years will lead them to around 2027 thereabout, which they can campaign on in 2028 and say that we have exited an IMF program.
Well, we'll see how that all plays out. Thank you so much, Professor Williams Prepra. I appreciate your time. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Darren.
All right, you're watching The Marketplace. Now, the Association of Ghana Industries has described Ghana's tax system as unfair and counterproductive to the growth of local businesses. Chief Executive Officer of the association, Sechuma Kwaba, said Ghana's current tax regime is a disincentive to the private sector, a situation contributing to low revenue generation for the state. He spoke on PM Express Business Edition.
I don't think so. To the extent that it can influence investors' decision or businesses' decision to either scale down or collapse their business, means that it has a very serious biting effect.
And what is the situation in Ghana?
The situation in Ghana is that our tax regime today is not in the best of shape. One is very high. I mean, if you import typical raw materials, and I have the import, bill. When you import and look at the declaration, about 52% of the value of items you have imported goes into taxes. So it is very huge. The other aspect of the taxes is the unfairness in it. If I, for example, I'm a major distributor or operator, and I have a shopping mall or something, and then I'm selling, because I operate in the formal sector, I put VAT on it. You go next door, somebody is operating from, say, a smaller shop, the same item, you buy there, and there's no VAT on it. So difference in VAT of 21%, so what do you think will happen? And therefore, what we're saying is that there's the need to rationalize it. So if you're asking how bad it is, no business can run away from taxes. Every business, wherever you go, you pay taxes. And we need the taxes. And we will not in any way sit down here and say, scrap all taxes. It's not possible. But we are talking of rationalization in a way that supports your core businesses that have positive multiplier effect.
All right, you're watching The Marketplace, taking a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about Ghana's Adinkra symbols and how we can make money from that. Stay with us. Welcome to Show Business. It's been quite a while, right? Breath of fresh air. Well, today we delve into the economic potential of Ghana's Adinkra symbols. Actually don't know how that became a topic, but a treasure trove of cultural heritage that has captivated the world. President John Mahama rocked the symbols on his inauguration day, and this has sparked conversation as Adinkra symbols have been an essential part of Ghana's identity. Well, on today's show, we are going to be talking about how Ghana can maximize this cultural resource for economic development. Joining me in studio, culture journalist Kenneth Auchodako to discuss how to leverage heritage for economic growth. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us, Ken. 2025, didn't think I'll start the year talking about Adinkra symbols, but President Mahama has made it a topical issue. First off, the article that you wrote, an interesting one that decoded the symbols of the president's costume on his swearing in. Tell us a bit about that. And why do Adinkra symbols hold such significance for Ghana's culture and economy?
I mean, we've had inaugurations every 4 years. We've had different presidents take up the state sword and announce their presence as the next leader for the next 4 years. And what I thought was quite different about this one was obviously the Adinkra symbols that the president, had embroidered on his agbada. And it was a very different way of dressing. Many people were not expecting that because in the past, you saw that President Kufuor would usually be in his kente cloth. And so people were really not expecting that the president would appear in this manner. And so the fact that he had all of those Adinkra symbols embroidered on his shirt was something that sort of pricked my interest, for which reason we did some research and realized that all of those symbols on there had very significant meanings to the presidency, to the values that Ghanaians ascribe to, and to the future of this administration, if anything is to go well for him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Adinkra symbols make their way onto the global stage, including Hollywood, but this one stirred some controversy. So what lessons can we learn from this, and how can Ghana benefit economically in the future? As you can see, the president there in his outfit, very beautiful.
So there are so many ways that the Adinkra symbols can be maximized. For instance, there are different ways of patenting logos and symbols for various reasons. For instance, there was an issue that was playing out in Hollywood, for instance. There was the issue where the Adinkra symbols had been used by, for instance, the producers of Black Panther, a very popular movie like that. And you can imagine the commercial success that film saw. And to know that the Ghanaian symbol was used in there was quite interesting. And so for that reason, there was some issue between, the folklore board here in Ghana and the producers of Black Panther back in Hollywood. The issue was about the fact that there has to be some credit to Ghanaians for the use of their, customary logos and symbols. And so it was supposed to be either Ghanaians were supposed to be credited in one way or the other. That could have been commercial, that could have been in other various values that could have been exchanged. And so that is one way that symbols such as the Adinkra symbol can be leveraged by the country when it comes to the valuation on the global market as well. So it doesn't just hold just cultural significance, but it also has some commercial value that, if really looked at, will really help.
I mean, you talked about branding. So how can Ghanaian entrepreneurs integrate Adinkra symbols in their businesses to create value, capitalize on this moment right now?
Exactly, because it is an interesting time that we are in. If you look at the global market and all of the sectors that are around at the moment, most of them are looking for things that are authentic. And most of them, we've had different instances where we've discussed the fact that African products in very different ways are being given the spotlight on the international market. The Adinkra symbols are one thing that can be leveraged. And our entrepreneurs can also, do something about it, because in selling a product, there are different things that make you stand out in the global market. There are other things that have been overplayed or overdrummed. Those in the industry know all of those things. But when it comes to like the indigenous values and the indigenous, architecture, symbols, Adinkra, and all of those things, it's very essential that we entrepreneurs find a way to imbibe that into their product to make it very unique when it gets to an international market, so that there's a reason for an investor or a consumer internationally to choose to go for a Ghanaian product as against whichever product that is being circulated by any other industry.
Well, again, speak about capitalizing. By the way, that's your article, Decoding Mahama's Worldwide Agbada and Adinkra Symbols.
Exactly.
On Inauguration Day, you can just catch it on myjoyonline.com. We'll make for good reading this weekend. I was going to ask how the government can support the preservation and economic maximization of the symbols.
So if you want to be able to protect your work, especially on a global level, it will be essential that you create the legal framework to be able to protect it. For instance, like the example that we mentioned about the Black Panther issue, if we had a very strong framework around the usage of Ghanaian artifacts and symbols and things that hold very dear cultural heritage, it would be easier to fight that battle either in court or outside of court. So there's the need for very stringent legal frameworks around the usage of artifacts that belong to the country as well. And also there's the need for some education as well on how it's supposed to be used, because I feel like if there is the know-how among, for instance, creatives, amongst economists, amongst all of the other spaces that you wouldn't think have a stake in the usage of some of these artifacts, if there's more education among all of those people, they can collaborate and ensure that what exactly is due the country from artifacts or from symbols that hold such cultural value, all of the things that are due this country from those things will be achieved in the long run.
All right. Kenneth Ochidako, a culture journalist par excellence. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. I thought you were going to be in your a shirt with the Adinkra symbols. I'm seeing something else.
You see some of it later.
All right, but I appreciate it. Good to see you. It's been a long while after all the politicking.
Finally, we're back.
Who's asking me to shout them out? All right. Becky, E-Vibes with Becky is going to air this weekend, I think. So, hey, shout outs to you, Becky.
Yes, Becky.
That's the marketplace. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. And please do catch that article by Kenneth Ochidako, Decoding Mahama's Board-Wide Agbada and
there will be some more articles on this tangent, in as much as the government continues to announce some of their initiatives and how they appear. I mean, this year there's going to be a lot on My Joy Online, not just on the economic and social aspect, but there's going to be a lot more on the cultural aspect as well.
There you go, Kenneth Ochidako. And just by way of news, we've got special programming in the next couple of weeks, the Joy Business Advisory Series. You should be on the lookout for that. We'll have all the experts show you or teach you how to start your year right and what you need to do so that you can, of course, make some more money this year. I don't know if we have the TVC, if we can play, but that's the marketplace. Thanks for watching. We will be back next week. Enjoy your weekend.